Mike, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Who am I talking to, Yvonne?
Yes.
How are you?
Pretty good. And you?
Good, busy. I guess that's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're staying home. I was gonna go in and I had one of my coworkers come down with it yesterday or
Oh.
2 days ago.
Uh-huh.
I thought, well, he probably got it at Hannaford, he thinks, in New Hartford. He's not sure. It's pretty
Oh.
close to these. So staying
So
home.
you got to quarantine for 14 days?
He has got to get his test back first. He's got all the
Yeah.
symptoms. And if it comes back, he quarantines until it's negative.
Okay. Yeah, it's everywhere. I just went to county legislator meeting, but we have like the shields and everything.
Yeah, yeah.
So I was like, I don't want to press my luck with 2 in-person meetings.
Yeah.
No. It'll be all right.
I feel a little safer in some restaurants than I do at meetings.
Yeah.
The restaurants, I go in with my bottle of alcohol scrubbed on the table.
Hmm.
And it's just me and the wife.
Well, even with the county meetings, even though we distance afterwards, then everybody wants to congregate, and it's like, no, that's
No.
not what we need to be doing, you know?
Hey, you're either a ventriloquist or your video isn't updating.
My video.
There you are. Now you're
Huh?
not a ventriloquist.
No, I thought they were starting earlier.
Me too.
Mm,
Maybe they've started and we're not included.
No, if they started, then me and you both are at the wrong meeting then, huh?
Yeah, I see them in the room there. I don't know if they see us.
You see the group?
I see a picture of the boardroom.
Oh,
You don't see that?
no.
Huh.
I wonder why. Wait.
I don't know.
Okay, now I see it. Okay. Scott's on.
You just hit a wish.
Okay. Hmm. Interesting.
I've lost track. Can you ever tell me how many kids you got, where they're at and all that?
For me,
4? Yeah,
I personally I have 2 kids.
2. Are they still in K through 12 or are they
One's in North
off to
Carolina.
college?
Yeah, my daughter lives in Dallas, North Carolina. And my son is here.
Where is that in North Carolina? I know Greensboro and I know Raleigh a little bit.
Dallas
Uh,
is close to the South Carolina border.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a little, it's about, yes. It's about 45 minutes from Charlotte.
So, I don't know Charlotte. I know
Yeah.
Charleston. Charleston seems like a nice place.
Yeah, I've been through there. So I have family that are in Kings Mountain, North Carolina, Raleigh. They used to live in Durham, so they're all around in North Carolina. Yeah, that's about it.
I know Greensboro a little bit because one of my daughters went to school there for about 5 years,
Hmm.
and then she came back. Seemed like a nice place. I liked it. She did not like it at all, but it wasn't because of the city. It was because of her advisor.
Oh,
She hated her advisor.
oh, I like to visit. I didn't want to stay there. It's too much driving. Everywhere you drive is 35, 40 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not used to that, so no.
I used to live in Dayton, Ohio. And it was like that there. No matter where you went, it was a drive.
A drive. Okay.
Yeah.
I've been to Canton. We went to the Football Hall of Fame.
Oh, New Jersey.
Yeah,
No, Ohio. Canton, Ohio.
it was in Ohio. Yeah, it's nice. Rained the whole time, but it was nice. So, any new news with you? Any new grandbabies or weddings or?
No, I guess that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Stable with the grandchildren. So,
Okay. Sounds good. Oh, they're doing the pledge.
oh, you have grandchildren yet?
I have 5.
5 grandchildren?
Uh-huh. Why
Pretty
can't
good.
they hear us? They're doing the
I don't
Pledge of
know.
Allegiance. That's so
Yeah,
strange.
I'll salute.
Okay, let me see what's going on here.
I'm gonna look at the other dots.
Yeah.
That's you.
Communications from the floor.
Oh, there we go.
No correspondence. Yvonne, you okay?
Yes, I am.
Okay, hon. All right, so no correspondence from the floor, right? Okay. So then we move straight on to the district superintendent's reports.
All right, so just as an FYI, I want to talk about the school boards, our New York State School Boards meeting coming up, the conference in October. In our board reports, we discussed in our board updates, I had mentioned that this will not be taking place in New York City as originally planned. Sorry, I can't breathe and talk. I just can't do it with the mask on. And that they have decided to host a virtual conference. So if you had previously indicated in your meetings that you wanted to attend the New York City conference in person, and now that it's virtual, you're thinking maybe not so much, please email Deb Kimball and say, thank you kindly, Deb Kimball, but I no longer want to participate in the school boards conference. If you hadn't signed up because you didn't want to go to New York City, but now that you've heard that it's virtual, you're like, yeah, I'm on board for that. I wanna do it. Please email Deb Kimball and say, Deb, I was once reluctant, but no longer am I reluctant, and I would love an opportunity to participate in the conference. And if you send her an email, she will happily sign you up.
What's the dates on that again?
I have it right here. Hang on. Oh, the virtual, though, is going to be held across 2 weeks. It's in your board updates. So they're not going to do it on the traditional dates. So the traditional dates were October 29 through 31, but in the board updates, in the weekly board update, it's over a 2-week period of virtual classes. So they haven't released their schedules yet for that, but when they do, I'll make sure to send them over to you. What? Oh, yep.
Just, I forgot to say this earlier, that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast live. And you can check a recording out and get the transcript later on our website, so if you so choose. Okay, that was my little disclaimer. Back to you, Doctor.
So this one is a last minute addition that I'm hoping the board will be willing to participate in. And if you're unable to, I certainly understand. But we would like to get a picture of our board on mask. And the reason is that we're trying to promote the use of masks. We're trying to get pictures of administrators wearing their masks and teachers wearing their masks. And we'd love to get a board picture of the board wearing their masks. We have a photographer handy who can tell us where to stand, and she will take a picture of us in our masks. So if you're all for getting your mask picture taken, please stand, and Rebecca will tell us where to go. Rebecca.
Can you see the Zoom screen where our masked board members are? Yeah. Wonderful. Can I get someone over here? Oh, there we go.
Look for a mask.
Right up front. Right up front. A little bit this way so that I can freeze. Everyone come this way. We have Zoom masked board members also. Okay. All 6 feet apart.
We have to make sure we got that right.
I think that's her. My arms are. I just want to say something. There's no way to go. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
All right, I think that's perfect. Thank you. Yeah, we're the mask board. They are actually just there.
magic marker out there.
All right.
So are they gonna screen shoot me and Mike with our mask on?
Yes.
All
Your
right.
pictures, you were included in the pictures, so we should be good. I love your mask, by the way.
Thank you.
So, Scott, can you pull up the
Got my
PowerPoint on the
mask.
screen for us? Mr. Moore, hello. I like your mask too.
Hello.
Boring. Blue.
I had to run and get a mask. I didn't realize we're gonna have masks. Is the mask thing over now?
Yes.
It is.
Okay.
6 feet away, you can take it off.
You were a little late to the mask party, but it's okay. So if we look at the screen, and are we sharing the screen also with our members of the board who are Zooming?
Yes.
Ann Turner is going to be handing out the PowerPoint. And we're just asking that we kind of have a conversation together. That'll be for your reference in just a moment. But we're talking about our mission, our vision, and our motto. Hello, Elaine.
Good afternoon,
And
everyone.
so in terms of the vision, the mission, the vision, and the motto, we had done some work in March surrounding this and really liked kind of what originally was with us. So Scott, you could go ahead one screen. Thank you. Yep, we're just going to wait one moment. Perfect. Okay, so our Zoom board members, can you see the screen?
I have to hunt for
Mike?
it. You must have moved it. Let
Yeah.
me see if I can find it.
Okay,
Yeah.
Scott is hooking us back up.
Don't have it yet.
Okay,
There it is. Got it.
you can see it now.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, so if we go to the next slide, we can see that our mission statement and our vision statement and our motto. And when we talked, we really looked at previous companies' visions and missions and kind of thought we might have had ours flipped a little bit in terms of the way we were using it. The vision really speaking to our why, our purpose, why do we exist? And our mission speaking more to our how do we achieve the vision? So when we had left our March meeting, we looked at the statement that is at the top, which is to provide innovative leadership programs and services in response to emerging educational needs of our school districts. And there was a lot of conversation around the students, and the board engaged in dialogue about, should we say students? People noticed that we also teach adults, and maybe learners might be the better word. And then we were left with the charge of fleshing the rest of this out and presenting it to the board, which is what we are going to do today. So you can see the previous mission, vision statement and the previous motto. And if Scott, you'll move ahead. So this is format one. We have two formats to share with you. So if you'll notice now, what was once called our mission is really, we're using it as vision. Our reason for existing, and it remains largely the same. And this was the work we had done in March. We strive to provide innovative leadership programs and services in response to the emerging needs of our school districts and learners. And that was that word we had added. And then there's the mission. That's how we achieve the vision. So this says that our staff members work together and collaborate with leaders in education, business, and industry, government, and the local community to promote inclusive educational career opportunities and equitable access that prepares all of our learners for the dynamic world of today and tomorrow. With the motto being, we are better together, we are OHM BOCES. And if you look at the next format, the next slide, you'll notice it's a little different. It says really the same thing in a different way. The vision, the why we exist, remains the same at the Oneida Herkimer Madison BOCES. We strive to provide innovative leadership programs and services in response to the emerging needs of our school districts and learners. And the mission stands out with the word, we are collaborators. This is our how. Working together and partnering with leaders in education, business, industry, government, and the local community to promote inclusive educational and career opportunities and equitable access in order to prepare all of our learners for the dynamic world of today and tomorrow. Our motto being, we are better together. We are OHM BOCES. Now, the two formats are there for a reason. One format is written more in like a passive language. If you look at format number 1, it kind of tells somebody about our organization. So if somebody wants to kind of know what we're about, they can read that. It has more professional language and a more traditional approach. In format 2, it's more active in language, and it's really meant to be about what our employees believe, what our employees are about. We are about these things. We at OHM BOCES, this is what we are about. This is what we do. So it's the same message written 2 different styles. So what I'd like to do is open up the floor to discussion because, board, this is for you. And then also talk about the different formats, the format 1 and the format 2. So with that in mind, I'm going to stop talking and see what board members might like to share.
Somebody has to say something.
Yes, if someone wants to speak to this or has
All right,
discussion.
okay. You're right. Basically, they say the same thing, and it's kind of presented in a different way. I personally like number 2 because it's a little bit different. It recognizes our people and us as people and what we do, our activities. It shows us moving and doing things. But the other is just as fine. You know, sometimes we focus on these things and we worry about what words and this and that and the other. I mean, as long as the message is there, people are not going to focus on individual words and how we word it. So the message is the same in both. If I had to choose, I'd choose number 2 because it just presents a little different to me. But I don't.
All right.
I don't see any difference. I don't see in working it anymore because we could work forever and change words and they would be meaningless to the people looking at it as long as our message is there. And these both give our message.
Okay. Any other thoughts, discussion? Dr. Forselli.
I too like format 2. However, maybe for purposes of discussion, might I suggest in our mission where it says we are collaborators, I believe we are much more. And I would like to see we are collaborators / facilitators / innovators, and then the diaresis.
Yeah, that was really, it's always really difficult. That was challenging. When we were talking as a group, we were trying to find, is there a way to get to the heart of the matter so our employees will remember it and use it, right? So that we language was powerful. And when we got talking about everything we do, we're like, well, if there's something that we don't do anything alone as a BOCES. Everything is a collaboration. And so that was the choice of the word collaborator. But I agree, if we're trying to really come up with all that we are, then I think we might want to look at additional words.
There have been many times when obviously we've collaborated, but I think there have been a number of programs that were innovated here, some of the services we offer, and certainly we, in our process of bringing school districts together in a partnership on a shared need, we facilitate that. So I think it answers all 3, but again, I'm open to anything.
That's a good comment, Gary, I think.
Yeah, it is.
Yes.
Any other questions or thoughts? Doreen?
I like number 2 too, but I think it says it well.
Any other thoughts?
So I guess the question is, do we add facilitators and whatever the other word was that you had, Gary? Or do we keep it the way it is?
I would definitely need some direction on that. If the board's in a position to move forward and say, we like it, then I would need the board to say 1 or 2. So, and then if we have that, we can move forward with our opening day, kind of launching off the message about our mission and our vision, and really launching the motto and getting people really coming together and making it about being together and doing everything together. And then we can also then take this and start working on our goal development with the board for the September retreat. So regarding Gary's points, I would need some further direction of the board regarding, do we move with collaborators or do we add to that?
If it serves the purpose, if the president's in agreement, maybe for discussion or whatever, I'll move that we go with format number 2 and that we add the 2 extra words that were provided.
There were facilitators, and what's the third one, Gary?
Innovators.
Innovators. Ms. Falvo.
I think it's
Well,
cleaner.
wouldn't innovators could become, collaborators, innovators, and facilitators, because you innovate before you facilitate? I'm being funny. No, it doesn't mean, but all the words are significant to what we're trying to say.
And I think Gary Nelson?
I just think it's cleaner as it is. You just leave it as collaborators. That's what you remember. That's what we are. And it's simple. And it kind of puts a brand on it. Whereas if you start adding words to it, it gets muddled and lost.
Yeah, I think when you add the words, and I'm not against adding the words, it's just that we're in the focus where we think people are going to think about every word that we put there. And
Right.
they aren't going to think about it. I mean, we work together to get a job done is what we do.
So definitely format 2, is that what I'm hearing? And then you got.
Can I just jump in just for a second? I agree with format 2. However, I just have a question, and I'm not in favor of adding the 2 other adjectives or verbs, however we're using them. But in the vision part where it says at the Oneida Herkimer Madison BOCES, it's a capital W. Is that just a typo, or are we actually?
Yeah, it would have to either be a ... with a cap. No, it wouldn't be. It would be lowercase. It should be a lowercase we. It should be
Okay.
little.
Okay,
Little we.
as I'm reading
Good
it,
catch.
with the inflection on that W, the we,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like,
Well, yeah, because it would be great to do like we. Is that what
Right.
you were thinking?
right,
Yes, but I think grammatically it should be a lowercase we.
okay.
Unless we do, for format wise, we could do the same thing as we have with collaborators. So at Oneida Herkimer Madison BOCES. Is Rebecca still here? We can work on the formatting.
So it'd be like we strive,
I see what you're saying. So it could say at the Oneida Herkimer Madison BOCES, we strive ... to provide innovative leadership programs, right? And then we are collaborators working together. Do you see what Rochelle is saying as a suggestion for formatting to leave the
I'm not really
emphasis on
making a
we?
suggestion, I'm
Oh.
just pointing it out.
Oh, okay.
I'm just newly seeing this, so for me to,
Yep.
that stands out to me, that's all.
Well, actually, the
So-
first thing is, it's one sentence at the Oneida Herkimer Madison BOCES, we strive.
We strive, yep.
Yeah, capital, I know that, whether you need ... or whatever, I'm not, it's not my area of expertise. But I think we need to say our vision, our mission, and separate them like that. And I guess I'm hearing that, there's not a lot of objection to a lot of it. I mean, it makes sense.
No.
Why not go with it as you people have designed it?
So that would be the lowercase we as one sentence with a closing in the top. Thank you for catching the capital. I appreciate that. And then the second would stand out with the we are the collaborators.
Yep.
Oh, Tony, do you want to say something?
Yes, I think changing from staff members to collaborators I think that's the positive way to go. I think when you signify something as staff members, it's a select group of maybe just the teachers. But when you say collaborators, it just engages all the groups, all the constituents, and I think we owe that to them.
Right.
I like the way it's written, and I think Gary's point is very well taken. It does dress it up a little bit better, but I think the key is changing from staff, where people see a designated group, to collaborators. That means all groups, no matter what your line of work is.
Trish, are the people who did this, they're comfortable with this, the way you presented it? Then I think as a board, if we
Yes.
don't have any discomfort that we really are deviating from what we're doing, I think we should just take what they brought to us and go with it. It's been a lot of work on their part.
Okay, so with that being said, there was a proposed motion for additional language. There was some discussion about that. We could do, it's part of my thing, but we could do a written resolution regarding the adoption of this particular mission or vision, but we still have some further discussion. So we have heard so far an idea to add some language. We've heard some discussion about that. Without making it a formal motion, because then we still have the 1 and 2 decision, I think. Do we have a stance on that? Can we just get an indication of add the language or keep it as it is, first and foremost?
I would say we keep it as it is. Our people designed it.
Okay.
Fine, let's go.
All right,
If it
okay.
will serve the purpose, because I did make a motion, I'll withdraw the motion.
Thank you. That's really, I apologize. And thank you so much for that, Dr. Porcelli. And now I think regarding formats 1 and 2, some people have indicated their preference. Is there a preference for one over the other? Or in this case, is there a preference for 2 over 1?
I think the people that spoke seemed to say 2.
Yep. I'm not hearing anyone else. You want to, yep, give me a 2. Give me a 2 if you're for 2. Any ones? Good call, Steve. All right, we're for 2. Hey, check it out. Okay, so we could have a motion, I can't make one, obviously, to adopt the mission and vision as read, as introduced in format number 2. And if we get a vote on that, we could actually move forward. I can't make a motion. Yep.
Okay, just an observation, and I don't want to make a big deal of this, but and your motto, we are better together. Hillary Clinton's motto was better together.
Really?
Yeah. Just,
I don't.
I love it.
Need to
I
go
like
for
it.
that. I don't think anybody's going to
But-
identify it with Hillary Clinton.
That's a great point.
It just,
Maybe,
Do you think the
I
Clinton
don't
fire
know,
of
but
we are
we aren't
OHM
Hillary
BOCES will help
Clinton. We
after
are
that?
OHM BOCES.
well, if you said, we're going to make HMO BOCES great again, I would.
There you go. That's a good one.
That's an excellent point. No, that is an excellent point, Mr. Nelson. Are we comfortable moving forward with it as written?
I am.
You are? Okay. So I can't make a motion that, but we could do it instead of introducing
I'll
Larry.
make the motion to adopt format 2 as is.
Second by any discussion? Just said, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Give yourselves a round of applause. You have a mission and a vision and a motto. Nicely done. Yeah, I have to say, a lot of people worked on that, and I'm very appreciative for all their work. And I will tell you, the polish, a lot of the polish of that came through our school communication service, which is just bar none fantastic. So excellent work. Actually, the person who took your picture added a lot of that verbiage in there. She does a great job. That's Rebecca. Yeah, stellar work. Okay, reopening update. So just to kind of keep you in the loop, I know that I do this on your weekly emails, but I also want to do that here. A few things. One has to do with employees and leaves, not coming to work or not being able to come to work. So I want to fill you in a little bit about that and let you know we are still going on with training, so we don't have it all worked out yet. But if we have employees who maybe are at high risk medically, they're medically vulnerable, they might live in a household with someone who has vulnerabilities, or they might have extenuating circumstances. For example, they might want to come to work, they might be a single parent, and their children might be home on remote learning, right? And they can't get childcare. There's all sorts of reasons that might impact an employee's ability to work as quote unquote, as they usually have in the past. And in such cases, they may or may not qualify for leave. And we're learning the rules about that. So an employee would send a letter to their supervisor saying, I think I need some accommodations in the work, or I'm very concerned about going back to the workplace because, and they might give a reason. They might have a spouse who's, dealing with cancer or has other issues. They would come in and have a meeting with an administrator. And if they belong to a bargaining unit, we'd open the door and say, please, consider having a representative with you to talk about reasonable accommodations in the workplace. That might include masks or extra protective barriers, or maybe a change of your desk where your desk is. In some cases with some employees, that may be including working from home. And yet for other employees, working from home, you wouldn't even be able to actually do the job from home. So accommodations are going to have a wide range, and there's no blanket approach that we can take. We have to work with each individual on their individual basis. Now, if we can't come to a reasonable accommodation, the employee may be able to stay home and not have to use their accrued leave, their vacation leave or their personal leave or their sick leave. And they would receive a portion of their pay, not necessarily their full pay. And that falls under the Families First Coronavirus Act. Now, in addition to that leave, we have FMLA, which is the more traditional leave. We are still learning here, across the whole region actually, how those leaves work, how a district sets them up, how they're implemented. In addition to that, we have to also figure out how we're going to create the procedures in our organization for the application of that leave, and how we're going to track the use of that leave within our existing computer systems, right, on how that will work. So I bring it to your attention because I know that you might have questions about that, or people might come up to you and say, I'm afraid to go back to work. If you encounter that as a BOCES employee, we have sent an email out letting them know, first and foremost, put it in writing and get it to your supervisor, and then we'll kind of work with the employees from there. But that is something that's on our radar. So imagine that as one layer of complexity that we have to give consideration to when we're trying to reopen our schools. Because we may have staff that can't be there, or staff that can be there but they need special accommodations, or staff that can be there on some days but not others. Now, we also have situations where we may have staff who become symptomatic. So they ran a temperature and it's a weekend and they had a fever. Well, now they can't come to work on Monday, and we have to coordinate with that staff. Are they going to go to their doctor, get a COVID test? What are the results of that test? What happens if they don't get a COVID test? Will it be using their sick time, or will it be using no one, we'll pay, we have to pay for them to be home, but it's an administrative leave. And in addition to that, we have situations where members of a household might have traveled, right? So we have the travel restrictions and all the related quarantines surrounding that. School district employees are considered essential workers. So there might be cases where someone's come in from out of town. They maybe took a child to college, they come back and they get tested. Within 24 hours, they're supposed to get tested. So they get tested and they get a rapid result test. So right away, within 15 minutes or so, they're told, yep, you're negative. Now, rapid results tests aren't always accurate, but we can say to them, you can return to work. And that might be the appropriate decision. So imagine that someone is like me. I'm in an office by myself. I can contain myself in my office and work away and really encounter no one if I wanted to work it out that way. So I could take a rapid result test, come up with a negative, and really probably safely occupy my workspace. But we might have other employees who come back from out of town. They take a rapid result test, comes back negative, but maybe they're directly interacting with our children on a regular basis. In that case, we might say to the employee, we're glad you did that, but we want you to stay home and wait 7 more days and get a second negative test before coming in. Now, in that case, they're on administrative leave. That's our responsibility. They don't take that from their accruals. So we're entering into this place where people may or may not have the right to stay home, come into work, have leave time, not have leave time, have additional accommodations, and not have additional accommodations. It's pretty complex and it's pretty unique. It may impact how we go about reopening. If we have a sudden onslaught of teachers who can't come in, we may have to look at what we do differently. So our plans, along with all the school district's plans, have to continue to be flexible, because as we start entering into the process of having school again in person, we're going to start to manage a lot of these issues. So I bring them to your attention. In terms of the organization, we're coordinating with our attorneys for some training, so we can develop the procedures and start working with our employees regarding their specific concerns. In terms of your role as the board, I want to keep you informed. And, at any time, if people ask you questions like, hey, we both worked for BOCES and this person got to stay home and this person had to go in and this person got a plastic barrier and this person had a mask, there's many, many, many different reasons for that. So I would just always encourage people to make sure they work with their administration through the process regarding accommodations for COVID. Are there any questions about that? Gary?
How are you talking to the unions?
Right. So I've been working with the unions. I've been meeting with the union presidents about once a week. So when the coronavirus the Families First Coronavirus Act first came out, it's a lot of firsts, I did Zoomed with them, talked in general terms like I'm speaking now, and said that what we're going to do is communicate with employees that if they have a concern, to write a letter and then let them know that we're getting trained. When we have our training and we understand exactly how we're going to implement it here, I intend to have another session with the 3 unit presidents to come in and kind of receive the same training we had, so we're all on the same page, working together through it.
Are you on the same page?
Yeah, I think for the most part right now we are, and the page is, if you feel vulnerable, send a letter into your supervisor. We'll reach out and start accommodations meetings. And that's as far as it goes right now. And if it moves beyond accommodations into leaves, that's when we have to deal with a whole new process. So that's where we're at. Yeah. Steve?
Is there anything we have to do policy-wise to help support whatever you want to do? Because I imagine, it reminds me when e-cigarettes first came out. It didn't exist 20 years ago, so then you have to add something to the policy. Do you have to add something to the policies to help support masks or distances or something like that? Because I can see people, we see the world we live in. People are resisting, saying, my God, give it right to not work. Do we have to do anything policy-wise to help support what we're doing?
Yes, we may.
We may have some policy matters that we have to attend to in general terms, not only related to leaves, but to COVID itself. And I'm asking for our attorneys to guide us through that process to say, here are potential areas within policy you may have to review. And we also know for sure that there are areas within procedure that we will definitely have to review, and regulation. Okay. So, yes, Tony.
Dr. Coburn, how about in the absence of employees, do we have the staff to take up the other responsibilities?
Yeah, so that's kind of like the big question. We were just talking today about, what if there are circumstances where we don't have enough teachers? Is a case where we're going to have to maybe turn classrooms to remote in the middle of a year. In terms of other responsibilities, I think that's where the fair is not equal conversation comes in, where if we have employees who can get their work done from home, we may be able to make that an appropriate accommodation, so we're not losing productivity. In the world of teaching, it's going to be unique, and it's going to depend upon the role.
I was thinking in particular, a special education child that has a one-on-one aide. If that aide isn't there and there's not staff to pick up that responsibility, does that child come to school?
Well, I know in remote instruction, we've had that come up, and we've done modifications to the IEP, correct? How have we dealt with that so far?
In that particular instance, we would reassign. We have enough teachers' assistants that we can kind of shuffle to make sure that that's filled. I think, we have to designate the difference in your question. There's filling the vacancy created by somebody who needs accommodations, and then there's filling the vacancy created by a quarantine situation, one being temporary and one being a longer term. So those are 2 different approaches for both of those situations. In in special education situations, obviously the IEP in the law trumps a lot of things. So we would reassign TAs to make sure that those needs are met at this point. That's what we've had to do all summer. So. Yep.
Thank you, Chris.
So I have a question. If we're trying to make sure that we maintain safety with this COVID going on, I know some schools you keep the same staff in the same classroom. So if we start shuffling people in and out and we don't know that their child got sick or their husband got sick, aren't we putting the kids at jeopardy? I mean, I just feel that there should be a continuity somewhere where it's like the bubble. These people are always with these people. You know, this staff stays with this staff unless it's an emergency. I personally don't like that shuffling now, TAs, classroom aides, whatever the title is. I just think that we should maintain some kind of continuity to contain this. In Head Start, we had a teacher who said her kids were sick, and then she said her husband was sick. And then she said she didn't feel good. So we were like, you have to stay home. But we had a TA and a classroom aide that were already in that room. So the continuity of service stays the same.
Thank you. Chris?
Yeah, and I guess I need to clarify that shuffle a little bit more. So if you look at most of the situations where there would be a one-to-one, there would be that shuffle would happen within the room. So most of our situations are a 12-1-4 or an 8-1-2, where there would be two people already in the room. That one-to-one is on top of that. So we would be able to maintain that continuity. That's a really good point, but I need to clarify that that's our first option, is to always move somebody in the classroom into that role.
Okay.
I just want to continue where Anthony left off in regards to staff, but on the component district end of the spectrum. Because if in my district, if you only have 10 kids in a room and you got 65 kids and you only really had 4 teachers, we're going to run short of teachers if we try to put a program where they all come in at the same time and not do cohort A and B. Has BOCES been approached in regard to bringing in teachers from BOCES as a COSER so we could get because none of us are budgeted to bring more teachers in within our budget. So it's not affordable to do on our own. I'm just wondering if any districts have asked that question.
No, we've been requested to create one program to help districts out, but we have not been approached about that. And there are some COSER restrictions in that regard. We cannot create COSERs in typical instructional areas. So it's against the COSER rules to create a 3rd grade teacher COSER, a 4th grade teacher COSER, English, math, social studies, the general. We were only permitted to do, and Charlie, jump in if I'm speaking out of line, but we're only permitted to do atypical areas at this point.
Yeah, that's understood, but with the pandemic, I didn't know if there were any loosening up of
Yeah, there could be. We didn't.
And one other question, if you don't mind. I think all the school districts were served with a class action lawsuit that came out of the Southern District of New York. 2 people from the city area, one from Connecticut, one from New Jersey, these families filed a class action lawsuit in regards to IEPs. The class action is in every state, and every school district within those states received a class action lawsuit in regards to not following IEPs. So I know we were served, well, the class action, we weren't served yet. And I don't think we're going to be served. According to lawyers, due process did not happen with that class action lawsuit.
what we think it is a shot across the bow, saying, okay, from March to June, we understand. But from this point forward, you better be following those IEPs and because we're watching. So I don't know if that has come up in any of the other districts. I know we had a long conversation about that yesterday.
It has come up across the state, class action lawsuits about FAPE, but there are some other anticipated lawsuits as well. And what was interesting was that in some ways, the lawsuits like directly oppose each other, putting really school districts and in some cases, the governor and SED in these no-win situations. But to your point, Russ, that conversation did come up also that when we look at down the road, we have to really pay attention to FAPE, right, which is the free and appropriate public education of our children, and that role of in-person instruction for special education students. And districts electing to go remote without attending to that could be an issue in the future. You just provided me a perfect segue for Chris to start talking about what are the plans for our NIDO BOCES, our instructional programs with COVID. So maybe you want to start with special ed?
I will. I'll start. That's a good transition. We'll start with special ed. And the interesting thing you mentioned, FAPE, and I just very quickly like to mention free and appropriate education. The standard there for what's tricky for a BOCES program is that we are supposed to provide an equivalent education to the regular education peers. And what's difficult in this pandemic situation is that 12 component districts take 12 different approaches to remote instruction. So when we receive the kids, we have to make sure that our instruction is equivalent and or exceeds what's going on in the district. So it's been very, especially in the spring, it was very challenging just because everybody was in very different places. But anyway, our plans for the fall, I'll start with special ed. So in our Bridges program, remember we have Bridges programs that are here on campus and we have Bridges out in district. So here on campus, we are closing in on 100% in-person instruction for all of our programs. We've moved 3 classrooms that were out in districts to the campus, shuffled some places around to bring those here because of square footage concerns. So all of our programs that are here, we believe we have the square footage. Charlie and I have worked kind of through the rooms. We have the square footage where we're going to get those kids here 100% of the time, with the caveat, and this goes with anything, that if the districts can get them to us that often. So a lot of districts are having busing issues. They may not be able to get them here 100% in person. In those situations, we will supplement with remote instruction. So here on campus, it'll be special education is 100% in person if districts can get them here. And most of the districts are telling us they can, but a lot of people are still working that out. Now, our programs that are out in district are a little bit different because we try to work with that district on what they're doing. If I was to start with Secoit, for example, we are 100% in person in Secoit, except for Wednesdays, because Wednesdays, all of Secoit is on remote instruction, and we could bring the kids in, but there's no lunch service, there might not be a school nurse there might not be, so we will be in person 4 days a week and remote 1 day a week. In New Hartford, and we're still working closely with New Hartford, but right now we're looking at 100% in person in New Hartford. In Waterville, our program will model what Waterville's program is. So Waterville has a 2-day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays, clean, remote, Thursday, Friday. Our kids virtually mainstream into those courses. I'll need to say something about that in a minute, but our students mainstream, so we need to kind of model after what they're doing. So I've been working with their administration on that, and we have to figure out the elementary model still in Waterville. And then in Westmoreland, we only now have 2 classrooms in Westmoreland. Westmoreland Elementary is 100% in person, and we'll be 100% in person with them. all of our component districts, and New Hartford, again, we're still kind of working back and forth with New Hartford, but all of our component districts where kids push in for mainstreaming are asking us to not mainstream this year. Just because, and we understand the square footage concerns, it's a challenge, and all our districts are great partners, so we're trying to work with them through that. In some cases, they're providing virtual options for our students, which is wonderful. So that's where we are with our Bridges program. And I'm seeing some heads perk up. Is there any questions before I go to the other ones?
Just an update on the water bill. The Wednesday, it's 5 days.
Okay. Oh, that's great. So we'll set up our model to kind of mirror what they're doing. The challenge in Waterville Elementary, and I can say this, is it's a split day at Waterville Elementary, but 12 component districts. The districts are talking to us about we can't get a midday bus run to, so we may have to model their 50% hybrid in a different way. And I'm working with Dr. Davis and Ms. Gray on how we can do that for capacity purposes and all that. So that's where we are with Bridges. We're actually pretty excited we've had some pretty good success this summer with, in the special education programs with not only our virtual program did we do a better job with, but our in-person therapies. We have children here all day long getting therapies, and the screening is going well, the distancing is going well. We've had some good positive reinforcement for the spring. So that's where we are with special education.
Can I slow you down a second?
Yes.
You started talking about hybrid here, and there was Waterville, which is resolved. But are all of the component school districts full day in, or do we have some hybrids going on out there?
So that's, I'm kind of glad you brought that up. That one of the things that's a real challenge as a BOCES is we have to work with 12 different models, and we have to be flexible. We can't look at our districts and say, this is how we're doing it, deal with it, because they'll say, we're not sending them. And then we got a bigger problem. So, and our districts are great partners. So we're trying to work together to get all of that sorted out. But to be off the top of my head, most of our districts are in a 50% hybrid model where the kids are coming in two groups, half the time, half remote, half at home. The days of the week that they're doing that is different across the board.
How are parents supposed to deal with this?
So Whitesboro is in a 30%. I'm kind of skipping that question because that's a very, very difficult, and it brings us back to what Dr. Kilburn brought up at the beginning about the Coronavirus CARES Act and the first, that's coming into play.
This is a opportunity us to be heroes to the families or to be their worst nightmare. And if you go into hybrid models, you are functioning to serve your purposes with ignoring all of theirs, all of their needs. And you're going to wind up everybody hating you.
Well, last night at our meeting, we had 240 people online with us. And we had 80 questions come in regard to exactly what you're saying. And the county and the state is not helping the situation out at all in regard to the testing. Because right now, according to what I've read up until yesterday from the counties, that test could take up to 7 days. And if it takes up to 7 days, there is no contact tracing until the results come back positive. So you have this period of time where, and it's going to be over a weekend if it's 7 days, right? Where these people are going from grandparents' house to this place over the week. And but that again, that's on the county and that's on the state. They need better testing. Herkimer County is a little bit better than Oneida County, but and yeah, we got pretty beat up last night. But that's part of the game.
I think one of the driving reasons behind the hybrids and the half days and the rotations and the third day of the week off is the physical space issue. So, once you take your classrooms, If you take a classroom and you run it at 6 feet, you're either at a 30% capacity or at a 50% capacity. Once you have that, it means you're bringing your kids in either on 6-day rotations or every other day kind of rotations or half-day models. So until we can arrive at a place where that 6 feet of social distancing is no longer part of the equation, there is no choice in the school's ability to do in-person instruction without running some kind of hybrid or alternate day schedules
And that's exactly the problem, because you can only put 10 kids
in a classroom.
based on the state requirement, what the rules are, 10 students and 1 teacher. So that's why my question was to Trish, can you give me teachers, because I'll convert the gym.
But you don't have enough staff, yeah.
Into 4 sections and I'll plexiglass it off, but then I don't have the teachers, or I don't have the budget to hire teachers on my own. This, you want to talk about heroes, this is when we need BOCES. Right now, we need a fix in order to get rid of the hybrids, to get element, I know we can, but you want to fix the problem?
Yeah, so some coastal relief might be helpful. So the physical space is an issue, and there's 2 issues. So Russ is describing the staff issue, right? But there's also physical capacity where some school districts are using they already were using all their classrooms. So now they can't even find a place to rent, it's not, they'll call, they're like, hey, can I rent your building to bring a bunch of kids in? And they're like, during a pandemic, forget it, so.
Have we taken a survey on who's planning on sending their kids?
It's a great question. I think that's going to bring us into our next program description or possibility. You guys are providing wonderful segues. So around the region, the school district superintendents have been asking parents and families, what are your intentions or what are your thoughts? And they're all couching it in different ways. Across the state right now, it's looking like somewhere between 20 and 30% of families are thinking they're not going to return their children. The governor has not said you are required to provide a remote option. However, you are required to build a plan that meets the family's needs. In conversation with the commissioner said read between the lines and provide a remote option. So that is where hopefully BOCES is coming in to help, because our local superintendent said we need help, and we need help with elementary, specifically online. Can we create a virtual academy for elementary students? I believe their thought right now is secondary kids can do a lot of remote work already, but teaching elementary students is challenging, right? So can we create a program? So if you could talk to that a little bit before moving on to CTE and MSA, that would be great.
Yeah, so we had.
Mike.
We're at 5 component districts come to us. More than that had originally showed interest, but we have 5 component districts where we're building a remote elementary school program for students that have chosen 100% home instruction or remote instruction at home. So we have 5 of our component districts right now. We're looking at about 350 students across the region right now that we're going to build a remote elementary school. So the idea was to provide relief to the component districts for the students that have chosen all remote, because the focus of our program, the teacher's focus will be 100% remote instruction, whereas a second grade teacher in a component district will have to focus on the students in front of them, the hybrid students that are home, and then this is a third charge that kind of spreads their focus. So, tomorrow I start interviewing teachers. Scott's division and Mrs. Turner are working on curriculum and instructional design. And we're intending to have this up and running by the first day of school for about 350 kids.
I do want to point out, just a clarification that, and we're doing that, we have to work with our bargaining units on that, because it's a real different kind of working condition for an employee to be a full-time online instructor. So all of this is pending successful cooperation with our bargaining units. And right now, so far, so good.
And this is a very unpopular thought. I've talked about it in the past. Is there a chance during all these crises to try to convince the school districts to maybe get on a common bell schedule? Howard and I used to talk. No, because there was so many things when you talk about distance learning, so much more you could do. All these little fiefdoms, 12 different fiefdoms all want to run their own little kingdoms, it's kind of ridiculous. Maybe this crisis provides us with the opportunity to say to them, hey, folks, times have changed. We can't do that anymore. The kids are important, how we want to operate. I was listening to Sheriff Mashel earlier today. He was talking, they were yelling at him about this overtime and overlapping of the SROs or SPOs. And he was saying much of the reason is because all the schools start and end at different times. He's got to send people to different areas. And he has needs. He said it's very difficult scheduling wise. He's got one person that he pays a ton of money to. That's all they do is schedule people out to schools and other places. And he said if they were on, he didn't use these words, but I was hearing them. If they were on the same type of schedule, life would be a lot easier, both for distance learning. I mean, there's so many things you could do. Isn't there something we can do why can't they? Why does everybody have? But now it's the time. Now you could go to them and say, you have to do this. Call Governor Cuomo and tell him you got to do it, because it would fix a lot of logistical issues.
So I would agree with you that it would be an opportune moment, and that a universal bell schedule, I think, is like the ultimate Christmas gift, especially I think to a BOCES, because it would create a lot of wonderful opportunities. As far as making it happen, what I can't do is go in and say, you must do this. It's out of my purview. I'm beginning to think Governor Cuomo can do just about anything, but I don't know if that's on his radar. But it's right on the money. It's an excellent point. And for a multitude of reasons, that never seems to line up. The same thing too, like as we were entering into discussion of how are we going to approach in-person learning with all the superintendents, I think they all had the intention of where we can do things together, let's do it together. But as you're working with different facilities, different building, different transportation, different staff, different students, it all starts to differentiate it. So no matter how much the intention was to try to do as much as possible together, by the time you meet the needs of your individual districts, you have different looking plans. So what I don't have is the answer as to why we can't make it so, but it's an excellent point.
I have a question. Structurally, has there been any talk about having cohorts that are currently maybe in the same daycare, or, like pods? I think they're referring to them as pods now. There are kids that are doing sleepovers. There are kids that are being babysat by a family down the street. To alleviate some of the strain of having to have every student at the 6 foot distance. Any talk about that at all? I mean, we've got kids playing athletics, rolling, and not that I want to draw attention to that because I think it's great that they're able to do that, but it doesn't translate into real life, functionality of these communities where kids are integrated with each other on a daily basis. And now we're saying we have to separate you at school.
So I could be wrong, but I don't think the option for 6 feet of distancing, it's not really an option in the classrooms. The intention of the guidance is that the classrooms, you have to be 6 feet apart. However, the guidance does say that it does encourage cohorts of kids, like bring family groups together, and on school buses, there's some relief from that pressure if they're from the same household. And some districts are doing it. So some districts that are doing, and I can't remember who's doing what, but some are doing like cohort A comes to school Monday, Tuesdays, and cohort B comes to school Thursday, Fridays, and Wednesdays, no one comes in. And the cohort A might be all students whose last names start A through K, right? The idea of trying to capture kids in the same households. So yes, that is taking place. Now, it's not taking place everywhere because, again, different schools are doing different things. For example, I think if it's still correct, I think Brookfield is bringing back 100%, but they rented out another old school to do it. So it's not 100%. That's what they want to do. So I do believe that, yes, there are some people who are doing that, but not everybody's doing that. And for a variety of reasons in the region. Right, so Chris, you want to talk about CTE?
All right, so CTE, that's another interesting situation. So we had to blow up our traditional CTE schedule. So traditionally with CTE, juniors
So we had to change our CTE schedule from what it typically is. Traditionally, CTE is seniors in the morning, juniors in the afternoon. We needed to provide flexibility to our component districts, so we are now running 10 sessions, so 5 morning sessions, 5 afternoon sessions of mixed grouping, allowing districts to send to us as much as they can, either in the afternoon or the morning, depending on what works with their rotation and their schedules. So for some districts, we were talking to Holland Patton today, and they're going to send to us on their rotation when their CTE kids are in person, they're going to send to us on those days. And that's typically what it is. So districts will send on the times that they have those kids in person. We're also allowing them to come more often when we can. We're going to have to cap classes at capacity. But I highly doubt we're going to reach that because our labs are very big. So if you remember a CTE room, you've all been in them during, we have the classroom and we have the whole lab. So we do have an opportunity to create some social distancing in CTE. We're asking districts to send, us in the 50% hybrid model as much as they can. We'll take beyond that if we have capacity, and we'll supplement with remote instruction, whatever a child misses. So if a child's able to get here 4 afternoons a week, that 5th afternoon a week, we'll make sure that they have remote instruction. But it's going to be a real challenge for our teachers. There are some advantages to it. If you have a senior in carpentry with a junior, they're able to learn from each other. There's some disadvantages to it, but it's going to be an interesting transportation schedule for when kids can get here. But we've kind of opened it up and said, we'll work with you because we want the kids coming. Our focus will be in person, will be the hands-on work. We're going to try to focus that whenever we can get the children here, the students here for CTE, they'll be doing the hands-on work. And then when they're remote, we'll get to the content knowledge and the classroom learning. So that's where we are with, that's CTE and PTech actually. Yes.
Chris, do you expect enrollment to go down because of all this?
We have no indications that that's happening yet. I will say in all of our programs, that is a real danger. It's even a danger in special education courses that aren't able to go 100% in person. It could be a danger there too. So it is a challenge and all, but we have not heard that yet. But again, it's everybody's scrambling right now, so we're waiting to make sure. So then really that takes us up to Middle Settlement Academy, alternative education. So this is a program where we will have to run a hybrid 50% model. That program has been over capacity for some time now. When I first started here, Middle Settlement Academy's enrollment was 140 students, and we're at about 250. So we were kind of beyond capacity already. We were making it work. So we will have to do a 50% model, 50% remote instruction, and 50% in-person instruction. With the in-person instruction, we'll focus on graduation barriers. So when we have students in person, it'll be math, science, and counseling resources, because those seem to be the 3 biggest barriers to graduation, and that program's job is to really get kids across the stage. So that's where we are. We are taking a couple programs like TASK and Alta Suspension, and those will become 100% remote. So because we have the ability to do that. So that's where we are across the BOCES right now in our approach. And again, we were asked to create plans and submit them to the state, us and all the component districts. And the work right now is the how, is the how and the when. And I think everybody's scrambling and making adjustments right now. So.
Okay, so that closes that portion of my report.
Is it this hybrid thing where you're open a couple days and not a couple days is solving the busing problem? Or do we still have a busing problem?
it doesn't solve the busing problem. The biggest reason for the hybrid model that we look at is square footage. You know, when you look at the regulations that you must stay in, especially Middle Settlement Academy classrooms are the smallest in the facility, and that's the most, so we can't follow the guidelines by bringing 250 kids into that program. We just can't stay within the guidelines.
This is going to blow up on you. This is going to explode.
As in our discussions at board meeting, we continually say this is a fluid process. Because, well, I mean, you're right. It may change tomorrow, or you know, by mid-September, it may be a whole different ballgame. Soon as those test results come back positive, and that's going to happen. I mean, that is going to happen.
But the community can't accommodate what you're setting up. It just cannot. They can't adjust their work schedule to accommodate your needs. There's just a conflict here that is not.
Well, and yes, so the conversation is if we remain fully remote, parents can't work.
Right.
If we come back in-person hybrid, it severely impacts their ability to work. The only solution is to get them back in person all the time, every day, and there's no way to do that under the current regulations. So it really puts us in a very bad position, trying to do good things.
The only thing I can say on this is you're going to have to be fluid, obviously. And I would say to err on the, it's easier to ask forgiveness than permission. And I think you got to go on that. And I think we're going to have to back you on that as a board, that do what you got to do and get permission later.
But that's, I mean, we can do that, but it's the lawsuits that follow.
Yeah.
After, it's not giving Trish the permission. It's the right to, you know, an education. And if we alter that to a degree, you know, I mean, we're already seeing the lawsuits come in. So.
Yeah, there's going to be lawsuits.
Yeah, there are.
There's going to be lawsuits.
Yes,
I think we got to accept that and understand that. And I think there's an old military saying that no plan survives first encounter with the enemy. And I think that's what you're going to be dealing with right now.
Mm-hmm.
This plan is going to collapse the minute you open the doors.
Well, I hope not the first minute, but, but, you know, as long, I mean, again, you know, as a local district, we thank God BOCES is there. Because, you know, we can't do this by ourselves.
Yeah, we've been having a lot of conversations about the domino effect, right? What is the chain going to be that's really going to potentially implode? I don't think anyone disagrees with your points, and I don't think anyone doesn't share your frustrations.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there is that concern in the matter of public health. What's interesting too is the feedback, and Russ experienced it last night from parents. And I think as many people, well, I wouldn't want to guess the numbers, but where we have people who are like, just get my kids back in, I got to go back to work. You have other people who are like, don't you dare, right? Don't dare come back in. So again, we're in the middle of a pandemic, a public health emergency, and I think all we can do is continue to try to move forward the best way. Fluid is the magic word. Responsive is the other magic word. We are going to have to be light on our feet and ready to move at any time. And to your point, I think there are times, right, where you hit a threshold where you've got to just make a call. So March 13 was an example of that, right? The regional superintendents were like, we got to make a call, we got to close. I think that the schools have leaders that are morally grounded. You know, they have great ethics and they have the courage to do the hard things when they need to be done. But I also think that they have to start with what we have before us in terms of our health guidance and move from there. I can't anticipate anybody looking at the health guidance, looking at the plans, looking at what's going on across the state saying, this will work, there won't be a problem. An advantage that we have though is that being a northern school district in the country, we start later. So there's some benefit in that we can learn, right? We were learning from around the world and now we can start learning from what's happening in other districts across the state, across the country. Yeah.
Dr. Kilburn, I know earlier either Russ or Gary made a statement that local districts are looking to BOCES for leadership. And there's a lot of truth to that because many of us are asking at board meetings, well, what can BOCES do? What is BOCES doing? I think we heard from Chris Hill, the innovation that you're presenting, that he presented with the virtual elementary classes, with the mixed sessions of AM and PM BOCES, juniors and seniors. That's huge. And for the local district, that goes a long way. And I think the silver lining is BOCES is taking that lead. Now we've got to get the word back to our constituents that, you know, there are a lot of questions that they don't have answers to, but BOCES is a driving force right now. And I think it really elevates the integrity of the BOCES organization that many districts need right now. So, Chris, thank you. I mean, those are small things that seem to be going a long way. And you mentioned 300-something students in the virtual elementary. I think when that word gets out, you're going to see many more.
Yes,
You're going to see a lot more than that. I know you don't want to hear that, but
You know,
that's the truth.
My first call,
New cottage industry.
Kathy Davis is getting a call right after this meeting.
No, it's true.
Yeah, I know.
Good job, though.
We talked about it last night. The thing that's driving us crazy at the local meetings and with parents is they want to get back to normal. They're looking for normalcy. And how do you provide that in a pandemic? We got to get the kids back in school. It's got to be normal. And there's nothing, you can't meet that need of normal. I'm not sure what's going to happen with sports. I mean, you're talking September 21st, and you know, the Big Ten and all the colleges saying no football. Just not going to happen. So, I mean, that's going to be the next big, huge issue when we have to tell students there's not going to be any fall sports. But it's nothing normal about it. Thank you, Chris. Yes, thank you. That's pretty cool.
Okay. Is that it? Okay, we're gonna move on to.
We'll move on to the approval of the minutes for the reorganizational meeting and approval for the board clerk's report. Can we get a motion? Moved by Ms. Coburn and second by Mr. Salerno, I think, second by Mr. Salerno. Okay, good. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor said aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
I think I have to abstain, right? Because I wasn't here. Is that right?
Yeah.
I
So
believe that's.
Mrs. Anderson will abstain. Very good. Now we're going to move on to the approval of the consent agenda B, C, and D. However, we need to remove CA8 for a, do we have to say what it's for? No, just CA8. And then we're going to remove CB10. Right now, we're going to pull that one out. So barring those, we need approval.
Could you review what those ones are?
Okay, so the CA8 is for the approval of Dominic Stewart, and the CB10 is the approval for Joan Ottman. There's been one board member wants to abstain, another board member wants to vote no for the second one, and that's why those are being pulled out right now. We'll go back to them.
Okay. I don't want to pull anything out, but I do have a couple of questions for Charlie when we get into, if you have a motion in a second.
Okay.
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 So can I just, it's a sort of a clerical situation, but on page 48, the motion carried with an 11-2, but it was actually 9-2, which is my OCD.
Got that? Okay.
So with the changes to,
CA8 and CB10? Okay, so we need a motion to approve those consent agenda B, C, D with those out, right? Can we get a motion? So moved by Mrs. Corbin, second by Dr. Porcelli. Discussion?
Could I
Hearing
ask
none?
Charlie my
Go
question?
ahead.
Okay.
Yep, go ahead.
A
That's
couple of
discussion, right? Good.
Right, a couple of questions on finance, Charlie. I'm looking here and there's a lot of stuff here to look at, so I did the best I could. And I'm seeing we have $8.7 million in our kitty to give back to districts.
That's very close to accurate.
Okay, I think
Mrs.
it's a
Fellow,
little
yes.
more than that, but I'm
It's a little bit more,
trying to
yep.
focus on where we are, and that's like 10% or so. It's a pretty good amount.
It's more than usual. You're correct. Yep.
More than usual, okay. And then as far as our contracts with our other BOCES, I'm looking at the end of 1920, our contracts were like $200,000. And now for 2021, our contracts with them are predicated to be almost 11 million. That means that we're buying more services than we did in the past. Am I correct, or are some of those numbers wrong?
The 11 million makes sense.
The 11 million makes sense?
The 11 million makes sense because our districts that subscribe to services through the RIC have to do that through us. And that's usually a pretty significant number. The 200,000, is that a specific page or?
Let me see where it is. It's where we're taught, it's the first part of purchasing from, here it is. Let's see, it says, the final contract for all BOCES services, this is what we bought from other BOCES in 2019 to 2020, and the total comes to approximately $200,000. So I'm wondering what's the difference? If that's the total of our contracts last year, and now this year we're buying 11 million. I always look at where we sit as services we provide and those that we buy as a buyer and a seller. I'm just, just seeing if those numbers are right so that I can try to follow through as I follow through the year.
Yep, they are correct. The ones for 1920, it's on page 73, is the contracts for Cap Region BOCES, Broome, Delaware, and DCMO BOCES. So there's just 3 BOCES included in that. The RIC has already been finalized prior to this, so that's not part of the, so 2021, you're seeing the Madison BOCES number, which includes the RIC.
So I'm seeing the whole thing for next year and only a portion of it for this past year. So that's clarifying it for me. Okay, so we've done a pretty good job with the numbers this year. So, all right, those are my questions.
Mr. President, if I may, one further question. I'm sorry.
I know it's okay. I just want to point out to Steve that Yvonne also is trying to ask a question.
Oh,
When they're on the
please.
screen, I try to, yep, thank you.
Yvonne, do you have a question?
I'm not sure where I'm supposed to ask this question, but at the last meeting, we had a staff person that was being given different job responsibilities. And now we're eliminating that position in, what is it, HR, fiscal? I think she reported to Charlie. Carrie, is that her name?
So the question was like in the last meeting, the board.
Yeah.
Yep, the board abolished the position of the assistant HR director and had to actually go through 2 abolishments because it was a position that was held by 2 different people across the past few years. And that was done in the last meeting, yes.
Okay, 'cause I missed it because I was like, I thought she was doing different job descriptions, but now is she gone? I'm sorry. I have so much.
So the
to
person,
read here.
yeah. Oh, no, it's all right. So when a position is abolished, there is no other position for that person to hold. So they would move on their way and we would not be able to hire back for that particular position.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Mr. President.
Dr. Porcelli.
I asked this question of the superintendent earlier, and I guess I need some clarification. In the contract section of what we're considering, there is a contract for New York Mills, which is, in my opinion, inappropriately executed. The superintendent was going to look into it and see how it should be dealt with. If it stays as it is, My thinking is that we would have to withdraw it because it is inappropriately executed. If the superintendent has clarification or has fixed it, that's fine with me.
Charlie, you want to talk to that?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Parcelli. Brought it to our attention, the signature was on the wrong line. We reached out to New York Mills yesterday and received the signature page correctly executed. So the amount stays the same. We should be good to go.
Thank you very much to both the superintendent and Mr. Cowan.
Okay, so that is discussion. So we're looking to take a vote on consent agenda B, C, and D with those pullouts. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Now we're going to go back to CA8, right? We're going to go back to CA8. We're looking for approval for the appointment of Dominic Stewart as a school social worker. And we're looking for a motion to approve that appointment. Can I get a motion?
Can you just direct me to the page of that?
Yeah, it's page 229 of 336 in it's the green pages. 229
Michelle,
of 336.
that's my brother, so that's why I asked it to be pulled.
Okay.
Yeah, we're pulling out. It's Russ's
So-
brother,
so
so
I-
he's
I-
going to abstain.
So I can abstain.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I was
on-
like, what am I missing?
Yeah, no, it's,
Yeah.
Got it.
And we got to look into this character. So,
I know.
yeah. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
So we need a motion to approve that appointment?
So
by Ms.
moved.
Corbin. Second by
Sure.
Mr.
second.
Nicotera. Okay, discussion? Hearing none, all in favor said aye.
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 Okay, motion carries.
I abstain.
And Mr. Stewart abstains. Okay, then we go to our next one that we pulled out, which is CB10. That's on page 231 of 336. 231 of 336 with recommendation for Joanne Ottman to be appointed as curriculum supervisor. And we pulled that out because Dr. Parcelli has an objection. So we need a motion. It's number 10 on page 231, Joanne Ottman. Okay,
I'll make the motion, Mr. President.
we need a motion. We got a motion by Dr. Parcelli, a second by Mrs. Anderson. Okay, so discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Dr. Porcelli votes no.
Gotcha, very good. Okay, motion carries. So that's B, C, and D consent agenda. Then we move on to now, Doctor, action items?
Mr. President?
No, we're done there. Top board
Mr.
topics?
President,
Yes,
point
sir.
of personal privilege, if I may.
Yes, thank you. Go
I
ahead.
believe we have gone through the entire consent agenda, have we not? Okay. I don't believe I can let it pass personally, and I appreciate the consideration, Mr. President, without saying something about the honorable gentleman to my right, Mr. Cowan. I'd just like to note, for whatever purpose, that every time I've dealt with Mr. Cowan, he has been a consummate gentleman, and I've appreciated that. His competency in the area of figures and numbers that I can't begin to comprehend has been superb, and I've appreciated most his calmness. Even when things got kind of heated, he's always been that calming force. He ought to be on that little circle on the app. Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity.
Here, here.
So we're going on to board topics, but did we already,
Can I,
Go ahead.
I'm off topic here, but I would like to mention this. I have been zooming in for a lot of meetings for quite some time now. And I just wanted to make the observation that when you're zooming in and everybody's zooming, everybody's on equal ground. When you're zooming in and you got a meeting going on, the people in the meeting tend to forget the people zooming in, and you're not on equal ground. So I would just like to make sure that we pay attention to what's going on the Zoom. Because as a board, we have a tendency to not stop talking, and there's no place to go in without interrupting. And it's a little hard. It's not as easy as when you're in the meeting to interrupt you. And so I just want to, because this is going to be the life is normal going forward. And I just wanted to make sure that, having experienced it, that we're sensitive to the people that are at the meeting remotely. And not forget about them.
I've had that same experience, and it is frustrating. When I'm zooming in to a room full of people, I'm like, hey, hey. Yeah.
Yeah, that is a good point, because we're not looking at these three people, because I'm not looking at these three people on my computer monitor. If I was doing a Zoom meeting with them in my living room, I would see them raising their hand, or see the emojis, and they would make motions, but, so, oh, you are watching, oh, good. So I apologize, Mike, Yvonne, and Elaine, if we've missed anything or anyone. Did you need to cover anything? Did we skip you on anything?
I
Gosh, I
seem to
feel
cover
left out.
things, whether I'm zooming or whether I'm there. So I'll
No
get
keeping
there.
her, you can't
And by
quiet
the
her.
way, I'm going to be leaving in about 10 minutes. I have a dinner reservations up here, so. Okay.
Well, I just want to say Charlie has been a great asset to me. When I first came out, when he came on, sitting next to me, making sure I had the right papers, I was reading the right things, always guiding me. I wish you the best, and you were awesome to work with, and good luck to you.
Thank you. This is being recorded, right, Scott?
You're here.
That's right.
Okay, so that's for topics in old business. Executive session.
Okay, so we're going to be, in a moment, asking for a motion to go into executive session, and it's going to be for the purpose of discussing the employment history of a particular person, and also discussing the collective negotiations pertaining to the one above that. Oh, yeah, one above that, that's right. Okay, got the X's in the wrong spot. And also discussing the matters that may lead to the appointment of a particular person or alternate or particular corporation. So that's what the executive session is for. So can we get a motion to go into executive? Moved by Mr. Stewart, second by Mr. Salerno. Who would you like to keep?
I will be keeping myself and whoever's on the Zoom screen, and all others who are not board members may leave. Mr. Morris, how is this going to work? Yep, take your time.
Can we get 5 minutes?
Yeah, let's take a bio break.
5 minutes.
Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. Does that change our
I'll
motion?
turn my camera off for that.
No, we're fine.